She challenged her to remarry her husband. 10 years later, she invited her to prove she won, but got slapped in front of everyone. Hello, my precious and devoted family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Every comment you leave fills my heart with warmth and gratitude. You aren't just part of this channel, you are its very essence. I'm truly thankful for each of you, for your trust and love. Every story I share is for you, because without you, I'm nothing at all. To everyone who helped us reach 25,000 followers, I send my deepest thanks. And to our new subscribers, please know you are valued beyond measure. I promise to bring you stories that move your heart and nurture your soul. In every heart a light will gleam. Together we live our shared dream. Please stay with us until the very end. You'll discover why this family is so special. And to my loyal supporters, please welcome our new family members by sharing in the comments how much this place means to you. From my soul to yours, I ask. If these stories touch you, if you feel this connection, please like and comment. Show me your love by writing, "I am here." This is more than storytelling. It's a home built on love and respect. I treasure each of you beyond words. Now, let's step into today's story, filled with all my heart. It all started with his cunning mother. Marilyn Brown was a woman so skilled in manipulation she could smile in your face while burying a dagger in your back. At 62, she had perfected the art of destruction disguised as concern, of poison wrapped in the pretty paper of motherly love. Her silver hair was always perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her smile practiced to perfection. But behind those cold blue eyes lived a calculating mind that had been planning warfare since the day her son Ricky Murray brought Haley Long home. The moment she laid eyes on her son's new girlfriend, Marilyn knew exactly what she was dealing with. Not an unworthy woman, but a threat. A beautiful, dangerous threat to the kingdom she had built around her son. Haley Long was everything Marilyn secretly envied and openly despised. At 28, she possessed a natural beauty that didn't need layers of makeup to shine. Her rich brown skin glowed with health and happiness. Her smile was genuine and warm, and her laugh filled rooms with joy. She was the kind of woman who commanded attention, not because she demanded it, but because her presence was magnetic, strong, independent, successful in her own marketing career, beautiful inside and out. Most threatening of all, Haley was the kind of woman who would never bow down to a controlling mother-in-law. From the very first family dinner, Marilyn watched how her son's eyes followed Haley's every movement. She saw how he hung on her every word, how he laughed at her jokes, how he touched her hand across the table with such tenderness it made Marilyn's stomach turn. This was not puppy love. This was not some phase her son would grow out of. This was the real thing, and Marilyn Brown would not stand for it. For 35 years, Ricky had been hers, her golden boy, her pride and joy, her everything. She had molded him, shaped him, controlled every aspect of his life since his father died when Ricky was just 12. She chose his schools, influenced his career decisions, even had opinions on his friends. Marilyn told herself it was love. But deep down she knew it was possession, and now this woman, this beautiful, confident woman, was threatening to take all of that away. From the very first day, Marilyn Brown made it her mission to destroy her son's marriage. But she was too smart to begin immediately. She waited, watching, learning their patterns and vulnerabilities for 3 months after the wedding. Then, slowly and methodically, she began her campaign of destruction. She watched them at family dinners, studying their interactions like a general studying enemy territory. She memorized every gentle touch between them, every inside joke, every look of love they shared. She catalogued their habits, their routines, their vulnerabilities, and slowly, methodically, she began to plan her attack. The engagement announcement then came 6 months later, And Marilyn smiled perfectly as she hugged them both, but inside her heart was already hardening into stone. She helped plan the wedding with calculated enthusiasm, offering opinions on every detail from flowers to venues to dresses. Her performance as the loving future mother-in-law was flawless, but beneath the surface, every suggestion was poison designed to create stress. Every opinion carried subtle criticism. Every compliment to Hayley was backhanded, designed to plant seeds of doubt. "Oh, that dress is lovely, dear, very bold. I hope Ricky likes that much attention on you. The venue is beautiful, though I do worry about the cost. I hope you're not putting too much financial pressure on my son. Your mother seems different from our family. I hope the cultural differences won't cause problems down the road." Each comment was delivered with a sweet smile and just enough concern in her voice to make it seem like genuine worry rather than calculated cruelty. But Hayley felt each one like a small cut, wondering why her future mother-in-law's words always left her feeling somehow diminished. Ricky, completely oblivious to his mother's true nature, dismissed Hayley's concerns. "She's just worried about us, baby. She means well. You know how mothers are." But Marilyn Brown didn't mean well. She meant war. The wedding day itself was torture for Marilyn. Watching Hayley walk down that aisle in her stunning white gown, seeing the pure love in her son's eyes as he watched his bride approach, witnessing the joy and celebration of their union, it all felt like nails being driven into Marilyn's coffin of control. During the reception, she smiled for pictures and gave a toast that sounded loving and supportive. But every word was a lie, every smile a mask for the rage burning in her chest. She watched Ricky and Hayley dance their first dance as husband and wife, and she silently declared war. The honeymoon period gave Marilyn time to perfect her strategy. She researched psychological manipulation techniques online, read books about persuasion and influence, studied every article she could find about mother-in-law relationships gone wrong. She was going to be subtle, sophisticated, and utterly devastating. When the newlyweds returned, sun-kissed and glowing with happiness, Marilyn was ready. She started small. Little comments here and there during family gatherings, observations about how Hayley's work schedule kept her away from home so much, questions about whether Hayley was really ready for the responsibilities of marriage, gentle suggestions that maybe Hayley didn't understand the importance of family the way their family did. "I just worry that she's so focused on her career," Marilyn would say to Ricky during their weekly coffee dates. "Marriage requires sacrifice, son. It requires putting your family first. I hope she understands that." She timed her comments perfectly, always when Ricky was stressed or tired or had just had a minor disagreement with Hayley. She never outright criticized his wife. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she planted questions that would grow in his mind like weeds. "I'm sure Hayley loves you, dear. I just hope she loves you for the right reasons. These days, so many women are looking for financial security rather than true love. Did you notice how she talked to that waiter tonight? I'm probably overthinking it, but it seemed a bit flirtatious to me, but I'm sure it was nothing. I ran into her friend today, and she mentioned how much Hayley used to love going out to clubs. I hope marriage doesn't feel too restricting for her." Each seed of doubt was planted with surgical precision. Marilyn knew exactly what buttons to push, exactly what insecurities to exploit. She had studied her son for 35 years, knew his fears, his weaknesses, his desperate need for approval and love. And she used every bit of that knowledge as a weapon against his marriage. She never directly told him not to trust Hayley. That would have backfired. Instead, she made him question his own perceptions. She made him wonder if the love he felt was real, if the happiness he experienced was genuine, if the future he planned was secure. "I'm probably wrong," became her favorite phrase. "I'm probably wrong," but I thought I saw her phone light up with a text message and she quickly put it away when you walked in. "I'm probably wrong, but when she said she was working late last night, I drove by her office. and the parking lot was empty. I'm probably wrong, but I heard her talking to someone on the phone yesterday, and she sounded very intimate. But I'm sure it was just a friend. The beauty of Marilyn's strategy was its subtlety. She never made accusations. She never demanded action. She simply shared her concerns and let Ricky's imagination do the rest. She knew that once doubt entered a relationship, it grew like cancer, spreading and destroying everything it touched. Within 3 months of their return from honeymoon, the damage was already visible. Ricky started asking Hayley more questions about her day, her friends, her activities. He started checking her phone when she wasn't looking. He started analyzing every conversation, every interaction, every moment for signs of the betrayal his mother had convinced him was inevitable. Hayley noticed the change but couldn't understand it. Her loving, trusting husband was becoming suspicious and distant. When she tried to talk to him about it, he brushed off her concerns or turned them back on her. "Why are you being so defensive? I'm just asking about your day. I'm not suspicious. I'm just interested in your life. Isn't that what married couples do? And maybe if you spent more time at home, I wouldn't have to wonder where you are all the time." Marilyn watched the slow destruction of their happiness with deep satisfaction. Every argument between them was a victory for her. Every moment of doubt, every flash of suspicion, every crack in their foundation brought her closer to her ultimate goal. But she wasn't done yet. Not even close. The seeds were planted, and they were growing beautifully. But Marilyn Brown knew that to truly destroy something as strong as Ricky and Hayley's love, she would need more than just whispered doubts and planted suspicions. She would need an ally, someone close to Hayley, someone Hayley trusted completely, someone who could deliver the killing blow from the inside, and Marilyn Brown knew exactly who that someone would be. Chapter 2. Whispers and Poison. The true poison began in the quiet moments, in the spaces between heartbeats, in the darkness before dawn, when doubt feels most real. Marilyn Brown had perfected the art of the late-night phone call, always around 11 p.m., just when Ricky was settling, into bed, just when his defenses were down and his mind was vulnerable. She would call with seemingly innocent concerns, her voice soft and worried like any loving mother's should be. "I hope I'm not calling too late, sweetheart. I just couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about what I saw today, and I don't know if I should tell you or not." Ricky would sit up in bed, immediately alert. "What is it, Mom? What's wrong?" "Oh, it's probably nothing. I'm probably just a silly old woman reading too much into things. But I saw Hayley today, and she was with a man I didn't recognize. They looked very comfortable together." The words would hit Ricky like ice water in his veins. "What do you mean, comfortable?" "Like I said, it's probably nothing. They were just having coffee, but the way he was looking at her, the way she was laughing, it reminded me of how you two looked when you first started dating. But I'm sure it was just a business meeting." And then she would end the call quickly, leaving Ricky alone in the dark, with his thoughts racing and his heart pounding. She never gave him time to ask questions, never provided enough details for him to confront Hayley directly, just enough poison to seep into his bloodstream and spread through his system. Night after night, the calls came, each one carrying fresh poison. I drove by her office today, and her car wasn't there, but didn't she say she was working late? Perhaps I misunderstood. Her friend Jessica called yesterday evening looking for her. She seemed surprised when I said Hayley was at work. Strange. I saw her at the grocery store, and she looked startled to see me, almost guilty, but I'm sure it was just surprise. Each whisper was precisely crafted, each doubt strategically placed. Marilyn had studied psychological manipulation like a science, understanding exactly how to plant suspicion without seeming suspicious herself. She always prefaced her concerns with self-doubt, always ended with reassurance, always left just enough uncertainty to let Ricky's imagination fill the blanks. The genius of her method was that she never made direct accusations. She never demanded that Ricky choose between his wife and his mother. Instead, she positioned herself as a reluctant bearer of concerning news, a worried mother who hoped she was wrong but felt obligated to share her observations. "I don't want to cause problems between you two," became her mantra. "I love Haley, like my own daughter. That's why this is so hard for me to see. But Marilyn Brown didn't love Haley. She hated everything about her, her confidence, her independence, her beauty, her hold over Ricky's heart." Every night, as she dialed her son's number, Marilyn felt a surge of dark satisfaction, knowing she was slowly, methodically destroying the happiness that threatened her control. The whispers began to work their magic. Ricky started paying closer attention to Haley's schedule, her phone calls, her moods. He began analyzing every interaction she had with other people, searching for signs of the betrayal his mother kept hinting at. When Haley worked late, Ricky found himself driving by her office to see if her car was really there. When she laughed at another man's joke, he wondered if there was something more behind her smile. When she received text messages, he tried to catch glimpses of the sender's name. The beautiful, trusting love that had defined their relationship began to crack under the weight of constant suspicion. "Who was that on the phone?" became a regular question. "Why are you working so late lately? Followed every evening shift. You seem different today. Is everything okay?" Carried undertones of accusation rather than concern. Haley felt the change like a physical weight on her chest. Her husband, who had once trusted her completely, was becoming suspicious and distant. Their conversations, once flowing and natural, now felt like interrogations. Their intimate moments, once spontaneous and passionate, now carried an undercurrent of doubt. "What's happening to us?" she asked him one night after another tense conversation about her day. "Nothing's happening," Ricky replied, but his eyes couldn't meet hers. "I just feel like we're growing apart, like there are things you're not telling me." "What things?" "Ricky, you know everything about my life. You know everyone I spend time with, everywhere I go, everything I do. What could I possibly be hiding from you?" But instead of reassuring him, her words only made him more suspicious. His mother's voice echoed in his head. "Innocent people don't get so defensive when asked simple questions." The poison was spreading faster now, contaminating every aspect of their relationship. Marilyn increased the frequency of her calls, the urgency of her concerns, the specificity of her observations. "I saw her having lunch with that same man again. This time they were holding hands across the table. I tried to get a better look, but they were in a back corner booth, almost like they were hiding." Her phone rang while she was at my house today, and when she saw who it was, she went outside to take the call. When she came back, she seemed flustered and wouldn't say who it was. I ran into her old college roommate, and she mentioned how surprised she was that Haley got married. She said Haley always swore she would never settle down with one man. Each lie was crafted with just enough detail to seem believable, just enough emotion to seem genuine. Marilyn had become a master storyteller, spinning tales of betrayal and deception with the skill of a novelist. But the most insidious part of her campaign wasn't the lies she told, it was how she twisted the truth. When Haley worked late on a legitimate project, Marilyn suggested ulterior motives. When Haley received calls from male colleagues, Marilyn implied romantic interest. When Haley spent time with friends, Marilyn questioned the nature of those relationships. "I'm not saying she's having an affair," Marilyn would whisper into the phone. "I'm just saying that the signs are all there. The late nights, the secret, the phone calls, the defensive behavior when you ask questions. I've seen this pattern before, son. I just don't want you to be blindsided." The psychological manipulation was relentless and sophisticated. Marilyn understood that the most effective lies were those that contained kernels of truth, that the most damaging suspicions were those that exploited existing insecurities. She knew that Ricky had always been slightly intimidated by Hayley's confidence and success. She knew he sometimes wondered if he was good enough for her, if she might eventually want someone more ambitious, more exciting, more worldly. Marilyn took those natural insecurities and fed them until they grew into consuming fears. "I just worry that she married beneath herself," Marilyn would say during their coffee dates. "You're a wonderful man, son, but Hayley is so ambitious, so driven. I wonder if she might get bored with domestic life, with a regular guy like you. She's used to excitement, to adventure. Marriage can feel very routine after a while, especially for someone like her who's used to being the center of attention. I'm not saying she doesn't love you. I'm just saying that love isn't always enough. Sometimes people need more than love. They need stimulation, challenge, novelty. Each conversation planted deeper seeds of inadequacy and fear. Marilyn convinced Ricky that his wife was too good for him, too sophisticated, too worldly. She made him believe that it was only a matter of time before Hayley realized she had settled for less than she deserved. The transformation in Ricky was startling. The confident, loving husband Hayley had married was disappearing, replaced by a suspicious, insecure man who questioned her every move and analyzed her every word for hidden meanings. Their sex life suffered as Ricky became convinced that Hayley was thinking of other men. Their social life deteriorated as he became jealous of every interaction she had with friends and colleagues. Their communication broke down as every conversation became a potential minefield of accusations and defenses. Hayley tried everything to repair the damage. She cut back on her work hours to spend more time at home. She stopped going out with friends to avoid triggering his suspicions. She answered every phone call in front of him and showed him every text message she received. But nothing was enough. The poison Marilyn had injected into their relationship was too strong, too pervasive. Every gesture of love from Hayley was interpreted as guilt. Every attempt to reassure Ricky was seen as manipulation. Every effort to rebuild trust was viewed as deception. "If you have nothing to hide, why are you trying so hard to prove your innocence?" became Ricky's constant refrain. Marilyn watched the destruction with deep satisfaction. Her son was becoming exactly what she needed him to become, dependent on her again, suspicious of everyone else, isolated from the woman who threatened her control. But she wasn't finished yet. The poison was working. But Marilyn knew that to completely destroy Hayley's marriage, she would need something more devastating than whispered doubts and planted suspicions. She would need concrete evidence of betrayal. Evidence that would be impossible to explain away or rationalize. Evidence that would shatter Ricky's heart so completely that he would never trust Hayley again, and Marilyn Brown knew exactly how she was going to get it. The late-night phone calls continued, but now they carried a new urgency, a new level of concern that made Ricky's blood run cold. "I think she's planning something," Marilyn whispered one night. "I can't put my finger on it, but something's different. She's more secretive than usual, more careful about her phone, more defensive when you ask questions." "What do you mean? Planning something?" "I don't know, son, but I think you need to be prepared for the worst. I think she might be getting ready to leave you, or worse." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Worse. Marilyn didn't have to spell it out. They both knew what worse meant. "I could be wrong," she continued, her voice breaking with what sounded like genuine emotion. "God, I hope I'm wrong. But I love you too much to let you be caught off guard. You need to protect yourself, Ricky. You need to find out the truth before it's too late." And with those words, Marilyn Brown completed the first phase of her destruction. She had poisoned her son's mind so thoroughly that he was now ready to take action against his wife, ready to spy on her, to trap her, to catch her in whatever betrayal his mother had convinced him was inevitable. The whispers had done their work. The poison had spread through every vein of the marriage. Now it was time for the killing blow. Chapter 3. The Unlikely Ally. When whispers weren't enough, Marilyn recruited help from the one person no one would ever suspect, Haley's best friend. Natasha Williams had been Haley's closest friend since their freshman year at Northwestern University. They had been roommates, study partners, maid of honor at each other's weddings, and confidants through every major life event for over a decade. If anyone had asked Haley to name the one person in the world she trusted absolutely, without question, it would have been Natasha. But behind that perfectly loyal facade, behind those genuine seeming smiles and supportive words, burned a jealousy so intense it could have melted steel. Natasha had watched Haley's life unfold like a perfect fairy tale, while her own remained frustratingly ordinary. In college, while Natasha struggled with marketing classes, Haley effortlessly earned top grades and impressed every professor. While Natasha endured awkward dates with forgettable men, Haley attracted successful, ambitious suitors who competed for her attention. After graduation, the disparity between their lives only widened. Haley secured a prestigious position at a top marketing firm and rapidly advanced through the ranks. Natasha drifted between mediocre jobs, never quite finding her professional footing. Haley purchased a stunning downtown condo. Natasha rented a cramped apartment in a questionable neighborhood. But the final insult, the one that pushed Natasha's jealousy from manageable envy into consuming hatred, was Ricky Murray. Natasha had seen him first. At a networking event for young professionals, she had spotted the tall, handsome architect across the room and spent the entire evening working up the courage to approach him. But before she could make her move, Haley arrived as her plus one, and within minutes, Ricky's attention was completely captured. Natasha watched from the sidelines as her best friend effortlessly charmed the man she had been fantasizing about. All evening, she smiled and played the supportive friend role as Haley and Ricky exchanged numbers, went on their first date, fell in love, got engaged, and planned their perfect wedding. But inside, Natasha was dying. Every detail of Haley's relationship felt like a personal attack. The expensive engagement ring, the romantic weekend getaways, the way Ricky looked at Haley like she was the only woman in the world. It all should have been hers. In Natasha's twisted mind, Haley had stolen her future, her happiness, her life. She hid her resentment perfectly, playing the role of supportive best friend with Academy Award-worthy performance. She helped plan the bridal shower, organized the bachelorette party, and stood by Haley's side on her wedding day, smiling brilliantly while her heart turned to stone. For 2 years after the wedding, Natasha maintained her facade while her jealousy festered and grew. She listened to Haley's stories about married life, offered advice on relationship challenges, and celebrated every milestone, all while secretly hoping for disaster. So when Marilyn Brown approached her with a proposition that seemed too good to be true, Natasha didn't hesitate. The meeting was arranged through careful social engineering. Marilyn had spent months researching Haley's inner circle, learning everything she could about her friends, colleagues, and relationships. She attended social events where Haley's friends gathered, listened to conversations, observed dynamics. It was at a charity gala that she first noticed Natasha Williams. Marilyn watched how Natasha's smile tightened whenever someone complimented Haley. She saw how Natasha's eyes followed Ricky with obvious longing. She noticed how Natasha's congratulations on the marriage seemed forced and hollow. Most tellingly, she overheard Natasha talking to another friend about how some people just get everything handed to them. That's when Marilyn knew she had found her perfect weapon. They met at an upscale cafe in downtown Chicago, two women who appeared to have nothing in common but would soon become partners in destruction. "I know this. Must seem strange," Marilyn began, stirring her coffee with practiced elegance, "but I felt I had to reach out to you. As someone who cares about my son, and as someone who I believe truly cares about Haley." Natasha played her part perfectly, expressing surprise and concern. "Of course I care about Haley. She's my best friend. If there's something wrong, I want to help." Marilyn leaned forward conspiratorially. "I think my son's marriage is in trouble. I think Haley might be straying." The words hit Natasha like a bolt of lightning. This was the opportunity she had been unconsciously waiting for. The chance to finally get what she believed should have been hers all along. "Oh my God," Natasha gasped, playing shocked. "Are you sure? Haley seems so happy. She talks about Ricky constantly." "That could be overcompensation," Marilyn suggested. "Guilt often makes people overperform their happiness. I've noticed changes in her behavior, inconsistencies in her stories. I'm worried that if something is happening, Ricky will be devastated when he finds out." Natasha's mind was racing. If Haley was really cheating, if her perfect marriage was actually crumbling, then maybe there was still a chance for Natasha to swoop in and pick up the pieces. Maybe she could finally have the life that should have been hers. "What can I do to help?" she asked, and Marilyn knew she had found her perfect ally. "I need someone close to her," Marilyn explained. "Someone she trusts. Someone who can observe her behavior, confirm my suspicions, maybe even discover evidence." The partnership was sealed with handshakes and promises of mutual benefit. Marilyn would get the ammunition she needed to destroy her son's marriage. Natasha would get her chance at the man she had wanted for years. From that day forward, Natasha became Marilyn's perfect weapon, a Trojan horse in Haley's inner circle. She began paying closer attention to Haley's conversations, looking for inconsistencies or suspicious details. She started asking more probing questions about Haley's schedule, her work projects, her interactions with male colleagues. Most importantly, she began feeding information back to Marilyn, who twisted every innocent detail into evidence of betrayal. Haley mentioned working late with the new art director on the Peterson account, Natasha would report. She seemed excited about the project, maybe too excited. She got a text during lunch yesterday and smiled when she read it. When I asked who it was from, she said it was just work, but she seemed flustered. She's been dressing differently lately. More attention to her appearance, new perfume, that kind of thing. Each observation was innocent on its surface, but became sinister when filtered through Marilyn's interpretation and passed along to Ricky during their late-night phone calls. But Natasha's most valuable contribution was her ability to create situations that fed Ricky's suspicions. As Haley's best friend, she had unprecedented access to her schedule, her activities, and her vulnerabilities. She began suggesting girls' nights out that she knew would make Ricky uncomfortable. "Let's go to that new club downtown. I heard it's where all the hot guys hang out." Then she would make sure to post photos on social media that showed Haley surrounded by attractive men, even if the interactions were completely innocent. She encouraged Haley to join her at professional networking events, where successful, handsome men would inevitably be drawn to Haley's natural charisma. Then she would make casual comments to mutual friends about how popular Haley was with the opposite sex, knowing the gossip would eventually reach Ricky. Most insidiously, she began undermining Haley's marriage from within, offering relationship advice that was designed to create more problems rather than solve them. "Maybe Ricky is feeling neglected," she would suggest, when Haley complained about her husband's increasing suspicions. "You've been working so much lately. Maybe you should make more effort to show him attention." The advice seemed supportive on the surface, but it was actually designed to make Haley feel guilty and doubt herself. If her marriage was struggling, Natasha implied, it must be Haley's fault for not being a good enough wife. Men need to feel needed, Natasha would say. Maybe Ricky feels intimidated by your success. You might want to tone down your ambition a little, let him feel like the provider. Every piece of advice was calculated to erode Haley's confidence and make her question her own worth and behavior. Natasha was systematically destroying her best friend's self-esteem while pretending to help her save her marriage. The psychological manipulation was breathtakingly cruel. Haley trusted Natasha completely, confided in her about every problem, and followed her advice religiously. She had no idea that her best friend was actively working to destroy her happiness. As the months passed, Natasha's role in the conspiracy became more aggressive. She began manufacturing evidence of Haley's supposed infidelity, creating situations that could be misinterpreted as romantic encounters. She would send anonymous text messages to Haley's phone from burner accounts, then make sure Ricky saw the phone light up with messages from unknown numbers. She would call Haley at odd hours, then hang up when Ricky answered, making it seem like Haley was receiving calls from secret admirers. Most devastatingly, she began planting physical evidence. A man's cologne sprayed subtly on Haley's coat after a girl's night out. A business card from an attractive male acquaintance slipped into Haley's purse where Ricky might find it. Small gifts from secret admirers left where they would be discovered. Each piece of evidence was carefully crafted to seem authentic while being completely fabricated. Natasha had become a master of deception, using her intimate knowledge of Haley's life and schedule to create an elaborate illusion of betrayal. The worst part was how much Natasha enjoyed it. Every lie she told, every piece of false evidence she planted, every moment of pain she caused her supposed best friend filled her with dark satisfaction. She was finally getting revenge for all the years of feeling inferior, all the time she had watched Haley succeed while she struggled, and the ultimate prize was within reach. As Ricky's suspicions grew stronger and his marriage weakened, Natasha positioned herself as his confidant and support system. She offered a sympathetic ear when he needed to vent about his marital problems. She provided a shoulder to cry on when his mother's warnings seemed to be coming true. "I'm so sorry you're going through this," she would tell Ricky during their increasingly frequent conversations. "Haley is lucky to have someone who loves her as much as you do. I hope she realizes what she's risking." Slowly, carefully, she began planting the idea that maybe he deserved better. Maybe he was married to the wrong woman. Maybe there was someone else out there who would appreciate him the way he deserved to be appreciated, someone like her. The plan was working perfectly. Haley's marriage was crumbling under the weight of constant suspicion and manufactured evidence. Ricky was becoming increasingly dependent on Natasha for emotional support. Marilyn was getting the destruction she craved, and Natasha was getting closer and closer to claiming the life she had always believed should have been hers, but they weren't finished yet. The poisoning had been successful, the evidence had been planted, the relationships had been manipulated. Now it was time for the final phase of their plan, the devastating blow that would shatter Haley's world completely and permanently. The trap was set, the prey was weakened, and both Marilyn Brown and Natasha Williams were ready to deliver the killing stroke that would destroy everything Haley Long held dear. Chapter 4. The Trap Springs. The final phase of destruction began on a cold February morning, when Haley discovered something that would change her life forever. She was pregnant with twins. Standing in her bathroom, staring at the positive pregnancy test, Haley felt joy and terror colliding in her chest. Joy because she and Ricky had been trying to conceive for months. Terror because their marriage was already fracturing under the weight of suspicion and doubt. For a brief moment, she dared to hope this news might save them. Perhaps a baby, 2 babies, would remind Ricky of their love, their shared dreams. Everything they had built together, maybe impending fatherhood, would break through his mother's poisonous influence and restore the trusting husband she had married. But even as hope bloomed in her chest, a cold voice in the back of her mind whispered that this pregnancy might be the final nail in the coffin of their relationship. Ricky's suspicions had become so intense, so all-consuming, that even this joyous news might be twisted into evidence of betrayal. She decided to tell him that evening, planning a special dinner and trying to recapture some of the romance and intimacy they had lost. She cooked his favorite meal, lit candles, and wore the dress he had bought her for their first anniversary. When Ricky came home from work, his face immediately darkened with suspicion. "What's all this?" he asked, gesturing at the romantic setup. "What's the occasion? Can't I do something nice for my husband without needing a reason?" Haley replied, trying to keep her voice light despite the hurt in her chest. "You tell me," Ricky said coldly. "You've been acting strange lately, more secretive, more guilty." The word hit Haley like a physical blow. Guilty. She was tired of being treated like a criminal in her own home, tired of having her every gesture analyzed for hidden meanings, tired of defending herself against accusations that made no sense. "I have news," she said simply, deciding that waiting for the perfect moment was pointless. There was no perfect moment anymore in their relationship. What kind of news? The suspicion in his voice was so thick it was almost tangible. "I'm pregnant, Ricky. We're going to have a baby. Actually, babies, twins." For a split second she saw a flash of the old Ricky, the man who had dreamed of having children with her, who had talked about teaching their kids to ride bikes and helping with homework. But the moment was gone almost immediately, replaced by that terrible, familiar look of doubt. "Are you sure they're mine?" The question hung in the air like poison gas. Haley felt the world tilt on its axis, felt something fundamental break inside her chest. Of all the cruel things he had said over the past months, all the accusations and suspicions, this was the one that shattered her completely. "What did you just say to me?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I said, are you sure they're mine? Because given everything that's been happening lately, I think it's a legitimate question." Haley stared at her husband, this stranger who looked like the man she loved but spoke like her enemy, and felt something die inside her. The hope she had been clinging to, the desperate belief that they could work through their problems, the faith that love would eventually triumph over suspicion, all of it crumbled to dust. "Get out," she said quietly. "What?" "Get out of this house. Get out of my sight. Get out of my life." "Haley, I think we need to talk about this rationally." "Rationally?" The word exploded from her like a gunshot. "You just accused me of cheating on you and carrying another man's children, and you want to talk rationally? There is nothing rational about what you just said to me. There is nothing rational about what you've become." The fight that followed was volcanic in its intensity. 7 months of accumulated poison, suspicion, and manipulation erupted in a torrent of accusations, denials, and heartbreak. Ricky, completely brainwashed by his mother's campaign of psychological warfare, threw every whispered doubt and manufactured suspicion at his wife like weapons. "I know you've been lying to me," he shouted. "I know about the late nights, the secret phone calls, the way you look at other men. I know about the man you've been seeing." "What man?" Haley screamed back. "What are you talking about? There is no man. There has never been another man. How can you not know that after 3 years of marriage?" "Because you're a good liar," Ricky said, and the coldness in his voice was more devastating than any of his previous accusations. "You've always been good at telling people what they want to hear." Meanwhile, Marilyn Brown sat in her living room 20 miles away, receiving updates from Natasha Williams about the epic destruction of her son's marriage. Each text message from her ally filled her with dark satisfaction. "It's happening," Natasha texted. "I can hear them screaming from outside the house. This is it. Marilyn smiled as she sipped her evening tea. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. Her son would be free from that woman's influence, and Natasha would get her prize. Everyone would get what they deserved. Back in the house that had once been filled with love and laughter, Haley was fighting for her marriage with the desperation of someone trying to save a drowning person who doesn't want to be saved. "Ricky, please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know where this is coming from, but I swear to you on my mother's grave that I have never been unfaithful to you. Not once. Not ever. You are the only man I have ever loved. The only man I have ever wanted. These babies are yours, our babies, our miracle." But Ricky was too far gone, too thoroughly poisoned by months of careful manipulation. Every truth Haley spoke sounded like a lie to his corrupted ears. Every tear she shed seemed like evidence of guilt rather than innocence. "I can't do this anymore," he said finally, his voice dead and flat. "I can't live with someone I don't trust. I can't raise children with someone who might be lying to me about everything." "Then don't," Haley said, her voice breaking. "Don't live with me, don't trust me, don't raise your children, just leave." And he did. That night, Ricky packed his bags while Haley sat on their bed, holding her still flat stomach and whispering apologies to the babies growing inside her. She apologized for the chaos they would be born into, for the broken family they would inherit, for the father who was walking away before they even had a chance to meet him. The next morning, Natasha Williams arrived at Haley's door with coffee and croissants, playing the role of supportive best friend with perfect precision. "Oh my God, honey, what happened?" she gasped, taking in Haley's red eyes and devastated appearance. "Ricky called me last night, but he was so upset I could barely understand him." Haley poured out the entire story to her best friend, seeking comfort and understanding from the one person she thought she could trust completely. She told Natasha about the pregnancy, about Ricky's horrific accusation, about the fight that had destroyed her marriage, and Natasha listened with perfect sympathy, making all the right sounds of shock and support, all while secretly celebrating the success of her and Marilyn's campaign. "I can't believe he said that to you," Natasha murmured, rubbing Haley's back as she sobbed. "That's just unforgivable." But even as she played the supportive friend, Natasha was already planning her next move. Ricky was vulnerable now, broken and guilt-ridden about the way he had treated his wife. He would need comfort, understanding, someone to help him process his emotions and justify his actions, someone like her. Over the following weeks, as Haley tried desperately to salvage her marriage through phone calls, text messages, and heartfelt letters that went unanswered, Natasha positioned herself as Ricky's emotional support system. She listened to his doubts and fears, validated his suspicions, and gradually convinced him that leaving Haley was the right decision. "You can't raise children in a relationship without trust," she told him during one of their increasingly frequent coffee meetings, "and if you can't trust her about something this fundamental, then maybe the marriage was doomed from the start." She was careful never to push too hard, never to seem too eager to break up his marriage. Instead, she played the role of concerned friend who only wanted what was best for everyone involved. "I love Haley like a sister," she would say, "but I can see how much this situation is destroying you. Maybe some space is what you both need right now." Meanwhile, Marilyn Brown continued her campaign of psychological warfare, now focused on convincing Ricky that divorce was not only justified, but necessary. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself," she told him during one of their weekly dinners. "It takes real strength to walk away from a situation that's toxic, even when it's difficult." "But what if I'm wrong?" Ricky asked, the guilt eating him alive. "What if she's telling the truth? What if those really are my children?" "Honey," Marilyn said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand, "you know in your heart what the truth is. Trust your instincts. They've never led you wrong before, But Ricky's instincts hadn't led him anywhere. His mother's manipulation had led him here, step by carefully orchestrated step, until he was so lost in a maze of lies and suspicions that he couldn't find his way back to the truth if he tried. The divorce papers arrived at Haley's door on a Tuesday morning in March, delivered by a process server who looked embarrassed to be involved in such obvious heartbreak. Haley stood in her doorway, holding the legal documents that would officially end her marriage, and felt the last pieces of her heart crumble to dust. She was 4 months pregnant now, beginning to show the slight curve of her growing twins. The babies she had dreamed of sharing with her husband would be born into a broken family, raised by a single mother who was still trying to understand how her perfect love story had become such a nightmare. That night, alone in the house that had once been filled with hope and dreams, Haley made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She was not going to let this destruction defeat her. She was not going to allow Ricky's betrayal and abandonment to destroy her spirit or her children's future. She was going to survive. She was going to thrive. And someday, somehow, she was going to show the world exactly who she really was. Not the lying, cheating woman her husband believed her to be, but the strong, honest, loving person she had always been. The trap had sprung. The damage was done. Her marriage was over, her husband was gone, and her children would grow up without their father. But Haley Long was not destroyed. She was transformed, and that transformation would prove to be more powerful than anything Marilyn Brown or Natasha Williams had ever imagined possible. Chapter 5. The Devastating Blow. The marriage exploded on a rain-soaked Thursday in April, 7 months after Marilyn Brown had planted the first seeds of doubt in her son's mind. Haley stood in their living room, hands protective over her growing belly, watching Ricky pack with the cold efficiency of a stranger. The twins kicked restlessly inside her womb, sensing the emotional chaos surrounding them. "Ricky, please," she whispered, her voice hoarse from hours of tears and pleading. "We can work through this. We can get counseling. We can save our family." He didn't look up from the suitcase. "There's nothing to save, Haley. I know what I know." "You know nothing." The words erupted from her with such force that Ricky finally stopped packing and turned to face her. "You think you know things, but you know nothing. Everything you believe is wrong, Ricky. Everything." His face was a mask of cold indifference, but she could see the pain lurking behind his eyes. This was killing him too, she realized. The lies and suspicions were destroying him just as much as they were destroying her. But somehow, that made it worse rather than better. If he was suffering too, why couldn't he see that they were both victims of something outside their marriage? "The evidence doesn't lie," he said, repeating words that sounded like they had been fed to him by someone else. "Actions don't lie. Behavior doesn't lie." "What evidence?" Haley screamed, her composure finally shattering completely. "What actions? What behavior? Tell me exactly what I've done wrong, Ricky, because I honestly don't know." He stared at her for a long moment, and she saw something flicker across his face. Doubt, maybe, or confusion. For a split second, she thought he might be remembering who she really was, who they really were together. But then his phone buzzed with a text message, and she watched his face harden again as he read it. She didn't know that the message was from Natasha Williams, carefully timed to arrive at this crucial moment. "Stay strong. You're doing the right thing. She's just trying to manipulate you now." "I'm done with this conversation," Ricky said, turning back to his packing. "I'm done with this marriage. I'm done with you." The words hit Haley like physical blows, each one driving her further toward the breaking point. She pressed her hands harder against her belly, trying to shield her unborn children from the toxicity filling the room. "What about your babies?" she asked desperately. "What about our children?" "I don't know if they're my children," he replied without looking at her. "And frankly, I don't want to know." That was the moment Haley Long broke completely. Not just her heart, though that shattered into a million irreparable pieces. Not just her dreams, though those died in that instant. Something deeper broke, something fundamental about her faith in love, in marriage, in the goodness of the man she had chosen to spend her life with. She sank onto the couch, her hands trembling, her breath coming in short gasps that made her wonder if she was having a panic attack. The babies kicked harder, responding to their mother's distress, and Haley tried to calm herself for their sake, even as her world collapsed around her. "I loved you," she whispered. "I loved you more than my own life. I would have done anything for you, sacrificed anything for you. I trusted you with everything I had, everything I was. And this is how you repay that love. This is how you honor our marriage, by throwing me away like garbage when I need you most." Ricky's hand stilled on his clothes, and for a moment she thought her words might have reached him. But when he spoke, his voice was cold and final. "Love isn't enough when there's no trust, and I don't trust you. I can't trust you. I won't trust you." He finished packing in silence while Haley sat on the couch, too broken to cry anymore, too devastated to fight anymore, too shattered to do anything but watch the destruction of everything she had believed. And when he was done, he stood by the door with his suitcases, looking at her one last time. For a moment his mask slipped, and she saw the man she had married, confused, hurt, and lost. But the moment passed quickly, replaced by that terrible cold indifference. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about the separation," he said. "And about custody arrangements for when the divorce is final." "Custody." The word came out as a croak. "You just said you don't know if they're your children." "I'll want a paternity test," he replied. "If they're mine, I'll pay child support, but I don't want joint custody. I don't want to see you any more than absolutely necessary." And then he was gone, leaving to stay at his mother's house while he figured out his next steps, leaving Haley alone in the house that had once been filled with laughter and love, now echoing with the ghosts of broken promises and shattered dreams. Outside, the rain continued to fall, matching the tears that finally came, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body and made the babies inside her womb twist and turn in distress. She cried for the marriage that had died, for the family that would never be whole, for the children who would grow up without their father's love. But mostly, she cried for the woman she had been before this nightmare began, confident, trusting, full of faith in the power of love to overcome any obstacle. That woman was gone, destroyed as thoroughly as if she had never existed. Miles away, in her perfectly decorated living room, Marilyn Brown received the call she had been waiting for. "It's done," Ricky said, his voice flat and emotionless. "I left. The marriage is over." "Oh, sweetheart," Marilyn cooed, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I'm so sorry it came to this, but you did the right thing. You couldn't live a lie forever." "I don't feel like I did the right thing," Ricky admitted. "I feel like I just destroyed everything good in my life." "That's just the guilt talking," Marilyn assured him. "You're going to feel confused for a while, that's natural. But eventually, you'll see that this was the only choice you could make. You'll be happier without her, I promise." But even as she spoke the words, Marilyn knew they were lies. She didn't care if her son was happy. She only cared that he was free from Haley's influence, back under her control where he belonged. Across town, Natasha Williams was already implementing phase 2 of her plan. She showed up at Ricky's temporary apartment with takeout food and a sympathetic ear, ready to position herself as his emotional support system during this difficult transition. "I brought Chinese food," she said when he opened the door, looking haggard and defeated. "I figured you probably weren't eating much." "Thanks," he said, letting her in. "That's really thoughtful." As they ate in his sparsely furnished temporary home, Natasha carefully began laying the groundwork for her ultimate goal. She didn't push. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she simply made herself indispensable, the one person who understood what he was going through, the one friend who could provide comfort without judgment. "This must be so hard for you," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "I can't imagine how confusing this all must be." "I keep wondering if I made the right choice," Ricky confessed. "Part of me still loves her, you know. Part of me wants to believe she's telling the truth." "Of course you still love her," Natasha said gently. "Love doesn't just disappear overnight. But love isn't enough when there's deception involved. You can't build a life with someone you can't trust." She was careful to echo his own words back to him, reinforcing the narrative that had been planted in his mind. She was also careful to seem reluctant to criticize Haley, positioning herself as a neutral party who only wanted what was best for everyone. "I love Haley too," she said. "She's been my best friend for years. But I've seen how this situation has been affecting you, and I can't stand to watch you suffer like this." Over the following weeks, as the divorce proceedings began and Haley struggled to cope with single parenthood while pregnant with twins, both Marilyn and Natasha worked to cement Ricky's resolve and prevent any reconciliation. Marilyn continued. Her psychological campaign now focused on convincing Ricky that he had made the right choice and that any guilt he felt was misplaced. "She's trying to manipulate you with the pregnancy," she told him during one of their regular coffee meetings, "making you feel guilty about leaving when she's carrying children that might not even be yours. It's emotional blackmail." "But what if they are my children?" Ricky asked. "What if I'm abandoning my own kids?" "Then you'll be a father to them," Marilyn replied smoothly. "But that doesn't mean you have to stay married to a woman who betrayed you. Plenty of divorced couples co-parent successfully." Meanwhile, Natasha was playing a more subtle game, gradually positioning herself as more than just a friend. She was always available when he needed to talk, always ready with comfort and understanding, always willing to listen to his doubts and fears without judgment. She began spending more time at his apartment, helping him shop for furniture, cooking meals for him, slowly making herself an essential part of his daily routine. She was careful never to make any romantic overtures. That would have been too obvious and too soon. Instead, she simply made herself indispensable, the one person who could provide stability in his chaotic emotional landscape. "I don't know what I would do without you," Ricky told her one evening as they sat on his couch watching a movie. "You've been such an incredible friend through all of this. That's what friends are for," Natasha replied, her heart racing at his words. "We just want you to be happy." But what she really wanted was much more than his happiness. She wanted his love, his devotion, his ring on her finger. She wanted the life that Haley had carelessly thrown away. As spring turned to summer, the divorce proceedings continued with brutal efficiency. Ricky's lawyer was aggressive and unsympathetic, painting Haley as an unfaithful wife who was trying to trap his client with children that might not be his. Haley, meanwhile, struggled to find the money for adequate legal representation while dealing with the physical and emotional challenges of a high-risk twin pregnancy. The stress of the divorce, combined with the demands of carrying 2 babies, left her exhausted and vulnerable. She tried repeatedly to reach out to Ricky to convince him to give their marriage another chance, to at least wait until after the babies were born, to make any permanent decisions. But her calls went unanswered, her texts were ignored, and her letters were returned unopened. The man who had once promised to love her through sickness and health, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, had completely abandoned her in her greatest time of need. In July, when Haley was 7 months pregnant and struggling with complications that required bed rest, she received the final divorce papers. The marriage was officially over. The life she had built, the future she had planned, the family she had dreamed of, all of it was legally dissolved with a judge's signature. She signed the papers with shaking hands while her twins kicked and rolled inside her and wondered how she was going to explain to them someday that their father had chosen to believe lies rather than fight for the truth. But even in her darkest moment, even as she felt the full weight of abandonment and betrayal crushing down on her, Haley Long made a promise to herself and to her unborn children. She would survive this. She would rebuild. She would create a life so beautiful, so strong, so full of love and purpose that no one, not Ricky, not his mother, not anyone, would ever again have the power to destroy her. The devastating blow had been delivered. The damage was done. Her husband was gone, her marriage was over, and she was facing single motherhood with no support system and limited resources. But Haley Long was not defeated. She was forged by fire, tempered by betrayal, and strengthened by the fierce love she felt for the children growing inside her. And though she didn't know it yet, this destruction was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of her transformation into something far more powerful than she had ever imagined possible. Chapter 6. Phoenix Rising. 7 years later, Haley Long stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the 32nd floor of Chicago's Willis Tower, surveying, the city sprawling beneath her like territory she had conquered. The woman reflected in the glass was barely recognizable from the broken, abandoned wife who had signed divorce papers with trembling hands. This Haley was pure force of nature. At 35, she radiated confidence from her core, strength. Forged in betrayal's crucible, her natural beauty had evolved into something more commanding, not just attractive, but powerful. Her dark skin glowed with health and purpose. Her eyes held wisdom earned through surviving the unthinkable. And when she smiled, entire rooms lit up. She was no longer Haley Murray, the naive young wife who had believed love could conquer all. She was Haley Long again, and she had built an empire. Her marketing firm, Phoenix Strategies, had grown from a desperate one-woman operation run from her apartment to one of the most respected companies in the Midwest. She employed over 50 people, managed multi-million-dollar campaigns for Fortune 500 companies, and had been featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine as the Phoenix who rose from ashes to build an empire. But her greatest achievements weren't measured in profit margins or industry awards. They were 7 years old and currently in the conference room next to her office, doing homework while waiting for her to finish her last meeting of the day. Marcus and Michael Long were everything their mother could have hoped for and more. At 7, they were already showing the confidence and character that Haley had fought so hard to instill in them. Marcus, older by 12 minutes, was thoughtful and analytical like his mother, with an engineer's mind that could take apart and rebuild anything he touched. Michael was the charmer, quick-witted and social, with a natural ability to make friends wherever he went. Both boys were strikingly handsome, with their mother's rich brown skin and intelligent eyes, but they also carried traces of their father, in the shape of their faces and the color of their eyes. Haley had never tried to hide their resemblance to Ricky. She wanted her sons to know exactly who they were and where they came from, even if their father had chosen not to be part of. In their lives, the transformation hadn't happened overnight. The first 2 years after the divorce had been the hardest of Haley's life. She had given birth to the twins alone, with only her mother and sister by her side. The delivery had been complicated, requiring an emergency C-section that left her, weak and struggling to care for 2 newborns while recovering from major surgery. Money had been tight, devastatingly tight. The divorce settlement had been minimal, since Ricky had successfully argued that the children might not be his, and child support was contingent on a paternity test that Haley refused to take on principle. She wasn't going to subject her children to legal scrutiny to prove something she knew to be true. She had started Phoenix Strategies from her one-bedroom apartment, working 18-hour days while the twins napped, taking client calls while bouncing crying babies, writing marketing proposals during the few hours of sleep she managed to steal each night. There were days when she survived on peanut butter sandwiches and coffee, days when she wondered if she was strong enough to build the life her children deserved. But she never gave up. Not when potential clients dismissed her because she was young and black and female. Not when bigger agencies tried to steal her ideas and undercut her prices. Not when exhaustion made her feel like she was drowning in an ocean of responsibility and fear. She drew strength from her sons, from their absolute dependence on her, from their innocent belief that their mother could do anything. Every time Marcus looked at her with complete trust in his eyes, every time Michael reached for her when he was scared or hurt, Haley found reserves of determination she never knew she possessed. The breakthrough came in year 3, when she landed a contract with Meridian Corporation, a mid-sized tech company looking to rebrand after a series of public relations disasters. Other agencies had pitched safe conventional campaigns that would slowly rebuild their image over time. Haley pitched revolution. Her presentation was bold, risky, and brilliant. She proposed a complete transformation of their corporate identity, a campaign that would acknowledge their past mistakes, while positioning them as innovators ready to lead their industry into the future. The campaign's slogan she proposed, "From Ashes to Excellence," became her personal motto. The Meridian campaign was a massive success, earning industry recognition and attracting attention from much larger companies. The campaign increased Meridian's stock price by 40% and won 3 major advertising awards. Suddenly, Haley Long was no longer a desperate single mother trying to make ends meet. She was a rising star known for turning corporate disasters into triumphs. More importantly, the success allowed her to hire her first employees, move into a real office, and take on multiple clients simultaneously. Years 4 through 6 saw steady growth as she built a reputation for impossible turnarounds and innovative strategies. By year 7, Phoenix Strategies was managing campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. With success came financial stability, and with stability came the ability to provide her sons with everything she had dreamed of giving them. She moved them from the cramped apartment to a beautiful townhouse in Lincoln Park, complete with a backyard where they could play and a home office where she could work while still being present for them. She hired Maria Santos, a warm, grandmotherly nanny who became an integral part of their family. Maria cooked traditional meals that filled the house with the sense of love and comfort, helped the boys with their homework in both English and Spanish, and provided the stability that allowed Haley to travel for work when necessary. But perhaps most importantly, Haley made sure her sons grew up surrounded by love and truth. She never spoke badly about their father. That would have been cruel and counterproductive. Instead, she focused on building their self-esteem, their confidence, their understanding of right and wrong. "Your father made choices that hurt our family," she explained to them when they were old enough to ask why Daddy didn't live with them. "But those were his choices, not yours. You are wonderful, perfect boys who deserve all the love in the world, and you have it, from me, from Abuela Maria, from everyone who knows how special you are." She enrolled them in the best school she could afford, made sure they had opportunities to explore their interests and talents, and surrounded them with positive male role models, coaches, teachers, family friends who could show them what good men looked like. The boys thrived under her guidance. They were confident without being arrogant, kind without being naive, strong without being aggressive. They protected each other fiercely and supported their mother with a maturity that sometimes took her breath away. "Mom," Michael had said to her on her birthday the previous year, "when I grow up I want to be like you. You're the strongest person I know." Marcus had nodded solemnly in agreement. "You're our superhero, Mom. You can do anything." Those moments, those pure, honest expressions of love and admiration from her children, meant more to Haley than every business award, every magazine cover, every professional accolade she had earned. But building a successful business and raising two exceptional children wasn't the only transformation Haley had undergone. She had also rebuilt herself from the inside out, healing from the trauma of betrayal and abandonment to become a woman who truly knew her own worth. Therapy had been crucial to that healing process. For years, she had worked with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a brilliant psychologist who helped her understand that the destruction of her marriage hadn't been her fault. The lies, the manipulation, the systematic campaign to destroy her relationship, none of it had been about her actions or her worth as a person. You were the victim of a very sophisticated form of psychological abuse, Dr. Mitchell had explained during one of their sessions. What happened to you wasn't random or chaotic, it was calculated and deliberate. Two people worked together to destroy your marriage, and they used your love and trust as weapons against you. Understanding that truth had been both liberating and infuriating. Liberating because it freed her from the guilt and self-doubt that had plagued her for years. Infuriating because it forced her to confront the reality that her husband's mother and her best friend had deliberately destroyed her life for their own selfish purposes. But with time and healing, even the anger had transformed into something more powerful. A fierce determination to live so well, so successfully, so authentically, that their betrayal would ultimately become irrelevant. The best revenge, Dr. Mitchell had told her, is a life well lived. And Haley had taken that advice to heart. She had built a life that was not just successful, but meaningful. Her company didn't just make money, it made a difference, working with non-profits and social justice organizations pro bono, creating campaigns that promoted positive change in the world. She had raised sons who were kind, intelligent, and strong. She had built friendships based on genuine mutual respect and shared values. She had created a home filled with laughter, love, and purpose. Most importantly, she had learned to value herself correctly. She no longer needed external validation to feel worthy. She no longer questioned her own perceptions or doubted her own truth. She had become a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she brought to the world. At 35, Haley Long was beautiful, successful, and completely self-possessed. She had survived the worst betrayal imaginable and transformed it into fuel for an extraordinary life. She was respected by her peers, adored by her children, and admired by everyone who knew her story. She had also learned to love again. Not romantic love, which still felt too risky, too vulnerable, but deep, meaningful friendships with people who had earned her trust over time. She had a small circle of close friends who knew her history and supported her journey, people who celebrated her successes and provided comfort during the inevitable challenges of life. And she had learned to enjoy her own company, to find peace in solitude, to appreciate the life she had built without needing anyone else's approval or participation. She was complete in herself, whole in a way she had never been, even during the happiest days of her marriage. The boys had learned about their father through court-mandated visits that happened twice a month, brief encounters in neutral locations, where Ricky could spend time with his sons without having to interact with Haley. The paternity test he had demanded during the divorce proceedings had confirmed what Haley had always known. Marcus and Michael were his biological children. She had agreed to the test on her lawyer's advice, knowing that fighting it would only hurt her case and delay child support payments her children needed. But biology and fatherhood were two very different things, and Ricky had never progressed beyond the most basic level of parental obligation. He paid his child support on time and showed up for his scheduled visits, but he had never formed any meaningful relationship with his sons. He was like a distant uncle who occasionally took them for dinner, not the engaged, loving father they deserved. The boys had learned to manage their disappointment about their father's emotional absence, largely because their mother had given them so much love and support that they didn't feel lacking. But they were also old enough now to understand that something was fundamentally wrong with a man who could look at his own children and feel nothing. "Why doesn't Dad love us the way you do?" Marcus had asked her just last month. Haley had chosen her words carefully, wanting to be honest without being cruel. "Some people have a harder time with love than others," she had explained. "It's not about you being unlovable. You are the most lovable children in the world. It's about his own limitations, his own fears, his own inability to open his heart. The way it should be opened. Will we be like him when we grow up?" Michael had asked, and Haley's heart had broken a little at the fear in his voice. "No," she had said firmly, "you will be like yourselves. You will be kind, loving, strong men who know how to give and receive love freely. You will be everything he couldn't be, because you have learned to love by watching how I love you." Standing in her office now, watching the sun set over the city she had conquered, Haley reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The naive young woman who had believed love would be enough to overcome any obstacle was gone, forever. In her place stood a warrior, a survivor, a woman who had been forged by fire and emerged stronger than she had ever imagined possible. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove herself and build upon the empire she had created. Her sons would continue to grow and thrive under her guidance. Her business would continue to expand and evolve. Her life would continue to unfold in ways that honored the strength she had discovered within herself. But tonight, she would go home, to her beautiful house, help her sons with their homework, cook dinner with Maria's assistance, and tuck two incredible little boys into beds they owned in a home they loved. She had risen from the ashes of betrayal and abandonment to build something magnificent. She was no longer a victim of other people's cruelty and manipulation. She was Haley Long, and she was unstoppable. Chapter 7. The Ultimate Insult. The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning in September, delivered through regular mail like a bomb disguised as ordinary correspondence. Haley was reviewing quarterly reports in her home office while the boys prepared for school, when Maria Santos entered with a troubled expression, holding an elegant cream envelope. "Senora Haley," Maria said softly, "this came for you. I think you should sit down first." Something in Maria's tone sent ice through Haley's veins. The older woman had been with their family for 4 years, and Haley had rarely seen her look so concerned. The envelope screamed expensive wedding stationery, thick, formal, with her name written in elaborate calligraphy. "What is it?" Haley asked, though part of her already knew. "The return address," Maria said quietly. "It's from Senor Ricky." The world seemed to stop for a moment. In 7 years, Ricky had never sent her anything directly except court documents and child support. Payments. Their communication was handled entirely through lawyers and the court-mandated co-parenting app that documented every interaction for legal purposes. Haley stared at the envelope as if it might explode in her hands. Her name was written in handwriting she didn't recognize, definitely not Ricky's familiar scrawl. Someone else had addressed this invitation, someone who had carefully written out Ms. Haley Long in flowing script that spoke of wedding planners and celebration. She opened it, slowly, her hands surprisingly steady despite the racing of her heart. The invitation slid out like a perfectly orchestrated slap to the face. "Mr. Richard Murray and Ms. Natasha Williams request the honor of your presence at their wedding ceremony." The words blurred in front of her eyes as the reality hit her, like a physical blow. Ricky was marrying Natasha. Her ex-husband was marrying her former best friend. The two people who had systematically destroyed her life were now celebrating their union and had the audacity to invite her to witness it. "Mia," Maria whispered, moving closer. Are you okay? Haley couldn't speak. She read the invitation again, hoping she had misunderstood, hoping it was some kind of cruel joke or mistake. But there it was, in elegant font on expensive cardstock. Ricky Murray and Natasha Williams were getting married in 2 weeks at the Palmer House Hilton, one of Chicago's most prestigious wedding venues. The date was October 15th, a Saturday afternoon ceremony followed by an evening reception. The same time of year Haley and Ricky had gotten married 8 years ago. Whether that was intentional or coincidental, it felt like another calculated cruelty. "Boys!" Maria called softly toward the hallway. "Come say goodbye to Mama before school." Marcus and Michael bounded into the office, backpacks slung over their shoulders, faces bright with the innocent energy of 7-year-olds ready to tackle another day. They froze when they saw their mother's face. "Mom?" Marcus asked, his analytical mind immediately sensing something was wrong. "What's wrong?" Haley forced herself to smile, quickly sliding the invitation under some papers on her desk. She would not let this poison touch her children's morning. She would not allow Ricky and Natasha's betrayal to cast a shadow over her son's day. "Nothing's wrong, baby," she said, pulling both boys into a hug. "I just got some surprising news. That's all. Are you ready for your math test today, Michael?" "I studied all my multiplication tables," Michael said proudly. "Maria helped me practice during breakfast, and I finished my science project last night," Marcus added. "I can't wait to show Mrs. Peterson my volcano." Haley held them a moment longer than usual, drawing strength from their solid warmth, their uncomplicated love, their absolute trust that she could handle whatever the world threw at them. They were her anchor, her reminder of what really mattered, her proof that something beautiful had come from the ashes of her destroyed marriage. "Have an amazing day," she told them, kissing their foreheads. "Learn something wonderful and be kind to everyone you meet." After the boys left for school with Maria, Haley sat alone in her office, staring at the invitation that had shattered her peaceful morning. The elegant script seemed to mock her, each carefully chosen word a deliberate insult designed to cause maximum emotional damage. "Request the honor of your presence." Honor. What honor was there in witnessing the marriage between a man who had abandoned his pregnant wife and the woman who had helped orchestrate that abandonment? What honor was there in celebrating a union built on lies, manipulation, and betrayal? But even as anger burned in her chest, Haley's rational mind was trying to process the deeper implications of this invitation. Why had they sent it? After 7 years of minimal contact, why would Ricky and Natasha want her at their wedding? The answer came to her gradually, and it was worse than simple cruelty. This wasn't Ricky's idea. This was Natasha's final power. In play, Natasha wanted to parade her victory in front of the woman she had defeated. She wanted Haley to sit in the audience and watch her claim the life she believed should have been hers all along. She wanted to see Haley's face when she kissed the man who had once been Haley's husband, and if Haley didn't come, even better. Natasha could spend the rest of her life knowing that Haley was too broken, too ashamed, too defeated to face. And them, either way, Natasha won. The more she thought about it, the more Haley realized that this invitation was the culmination of 7 years of calculated cruelty. From the moment Marilyn Brown had set her sights on destroying Haley's marriage, everything had been leading to this moment. Ricky and Natasha publicly claiming victory, while Haley was forced to watch from the sidelines. She picked up her phone and called Dr. Sarah Mitchell, her therapist, who thankfully had an opening that afternoon. "They want me to see them win," Haley explained during their session. "They want me to watch them get their happy ending while I'm reminded of everything I lost." "How do you know that's what they want?" Dr. Mitchell asked gently. "Because I know." "Natasha," Haley said, her voice bitter, "I know how her mind works. She's been jealous of me since college, and now she finally has everything she thought should have been hers. My husband, my life, my supposed happiness. This invitation is her way of rubbing my face in it. And what does that tell you about the kind of people they are? Haley was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. It tells me they're still the same manipulative, cruel people they were 7 years ago. It tells me that destroying my marriage wasn't enough. They want to destroy my peace of mind too. So what are you going to do? It was the question Haley had been wrestling with all day. The easy answer was to throw the invitation away and pretend it never arrived. She could spend that weekend with her sons, maybe take them to a museum or a movie, and forget that Ricky and Natasha even existed. But something inside her rebelled against that choice. Something strong and fierce that had been forged in the fire of betrayal and built through 7 years of single motherhood and professional success. "I'm going to go," she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Dr. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "Really, why?" "Because they expect me to hide," Haley said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "They expect me to cower in shame and defeat while they celebrate their victory. They think I'm still the broken, abandoned woman they destroyed 7 years ago. And you're not?" "No," Haley said firmly. "I'm not. I'm Haley Long, and I've built an extraordinary life from the ruins they left behind. I've raised 2 incredible sons without their help. I've built a successful business from nothing. I've survived everything they threw at me and emerged stronger than I ever imagined possible. So you want to show them how well you've done?" "No," Haley said, shaking her head. "I want to show them, and myself, that they no longer have any power over me, that I can stand in the same room with them and feel nothing but pity for how small and cruel they are." Dr. Mitchell studied her carefully. "Are you sure you're ready for that? Seeing them together, seeing them happy, hearing people congratulate them on their love story, that's going to be painful no matter how strong you've become." "It will be painful," Haley acknowledged. "But avoiding pain isn't the same as being strong. I've spent 7 years rebuilding myself, 7 years proving that I'm more than what they tried to reduce me to. If I hide from this wedding, I'm letting them win. I'm letting them keep me in the role of victim. And if I go, I reclaim my power. I show up as the woman I've become, not the woman they destroyed. I look them in the eye and let them see that their worst wasn't enough to break me." The conversation continued for another 40 minutes, with Dr. Mitchell helping Haley explore her motivations and prepare emotionally for what would undoubtedly be a challenging experience. But by the end of the session, Haley was certain of her decision. She was going to the wedding. That evening, after the boys were in bed, Haley sat in her beautiful living room and called her sister Jennifer. "They invited you to their wedding?" Jennifer's voice was incredulous. "Are you kidding me? The audacity, the absolute mind-blowing audacity." "I know," Haley said. "It's like they're not content with having destroyed my marriage. They want to make sure I know they're happy about it. Please tell me you're not actually considering going." "I'm not considering it," Haley said calmly. "I've decided. I'm going." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Haley," Jennifer said finally, "honey, I love you, but that might be the worst idea you've ever had. Why would you do that to yourself?" "Because I'm not the same woman they destroyed 7 years ago," Haley explained. "I'm stronger now, more confident, more secure in who I am and what I've accomplished. If I let this wedding intimidate me into hiding, then I'm giving them power they don't deserve to have. But what if seeing them together breaks you all over again?" "Then I'll put myself back together again," Haley said simply, "just like I did before. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'm finally ready to face them and show them exactly who I've become." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. "If you're really going to do this insane thing, you're not going alone. I'm coming with you." "Jen, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. If my sister is crazy enough to attend her ex-husband's Wedding to the woman who helped destroy her marriage, then she's going to have backup. End of discussion. Hayley felt tears prick her eyes at her sister's fierce loyalty. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Jennifer said grimly. Thank me after we survive this nightmare. That night, Hayley lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the choice she had made. In 2 weeks, she would walk into a room full of people, celebrating the union of two people who had systematically destroyed her life. She would smile and be gracious while watching her ex-husband marry her former best friend. It would be torture. It would be one of the hardest things she had ever done. But it would also be her final victory over them, because by showing up, strong, successful, beautiful, and completely unbroken, she would prove that their worst hadn't been enough to destroy her. She thought about her sons, sleeping peacefully in their rooms down the hall. They would spend that weekend with her mother, blissfully unaware of the drama their mother was voluntarily walking into. They would never know that she had chosen to face her past demons head-on, to prove, once and for all, that she was no longer anyone's victim. The wedding invitation sat on her nightstand, cream-colored and elegant and cruel. But for the first time since it had arrived, Hayley looked at it without feeling pain. Instead, she felt something that surprised her: anticipation. She was ready to show Ricky Murray and Natasha Williams exactly what they had lost when they threw her away 7 years ago, and she was ready to show herself that she was finally, completely, triumphantly free. Chapter 8. Preparing for War. The 2 weeks between receiving the invitation and the wedding felt like preparing for the most crucial battle of Hayley's life. But this wasn't a battle fought with weapons or harsh words. This was victory achieved, simply through being magnificent. If we're doing this, her sister Jennifer declared the morning after Hayley's decision, we're doing it perfectly. You're going to walk into that wedding looking like absolute royalty. Jennifer had taken a week off work for what she dramatically called Operation Phoenix, referencing Hayley's company name and her rise from the ashes. She approached the preparation with military precision, creating lists, scheduling appointments, orchestrating every detail of Hayley's transformation. This isn't about showing off, Jennifer explained, as they sat in Hayley's kitchen, surrounded by fashion magazines and fabric swatches. This is about armor. When you walk into that room, you need to feel so confident, so beautiful, so completely secure in who you are, that nothing they say or do can touch you. The first stop was Marcus Wainwright, Chicago's most exclusive personal stylist, whose client list included celebrities, politicians, and Fortune 500 CEOs. Jennifer had called in favors and paid premium rates to get Hayley an emergency appointment. "Darling," Marcus said the moment he saw Hayley, his eyes lighting up with professional excitement. "You are stunning, absolutely stunning. Tell me what we're working with here." Jennifer had briefed him on the situation: divorce, betrayal, the need to look absolutely devastating without appearing to try too hard. Marcus listened with the intense focus of an artist planning his masterpiece. "We want elegant," he mused, circling Hayley like a sculptor studying his marble. "Powerful but not aggressive, beautiful but not desperate. We want everyone in that room to look at you and think, 'My God, how could anyone let that woman go?'" The dress they chose was a masterpiece of subtle warfare, deep emerald green silk that complemented Hayley's skin tone perfectly, with a silhouette that celebrated her figure without being provocative. The design was sophisticated and timeless, the kind of dress that would make other women wish they had her stylist and make men remember why they had fallen in love with their wives. "This color," Marcus explained, "represents growth, renewal, and prosperity. You're literally wearing your success. And the cut, it's confident without being flashy, elegant without being stuffy. You'll be the most beautiful woman in the room, but in a way that feels effortless." Next came the accessories, a delicate necklace with emeralds that caught the light without screaming for attention. earrings that complemented her face shape and hair, a clutch bag that was both practical and elegant. Every piece carefully chosen to create a complete picture of success and sophistication. Remember, Marcus said as they finalized the ensemble, fashion is psychology. When you feel beautiful, you carry yourself differently. When you know you look amazing, your confidence radiates from within. That's your real weapon here, not the dress, not the jewelry, but the unshakable belief in your own worth. The appointment with celebrity makeup artist Sofia Rodriguez came next. Sofia had worked with A-list actresses and red carpet events, and she understood the assignment immediately. "We want you to look like the most beautiful version of yourself," Sofia explained, as she studied Hailey's bone structure in the ring of professional lighting. "Not different, not dramatic, just absolutely perfect. Like you woke up looking flawless and decided to get married yourself." The makeup session was transformative. Sofia enhanced Hailey's natural beauty with subtle techniques that made her skin glow like she was lit from within. Her eyes were defined but not overdone. Her lips were perfect but natural looking. The result was stunning. Hailey looked like herself, but as if she had been touched by magic. "When they see you," Sofia said, stepping back to admire her work, "they're going to remember exactly what they lost. And more importantly, you're going to remember exactly who you are." Hair was handled by Antoine Dubois, whose salon was booked months in advance, but who made an exception after Jennifer's persuasive phone call and generous deposit. Antoine studied Hailey's face and neckline before creating an elegant updo that was both classic and contemporary. "We want sophistication," he explained as he worked, "but not severity. Elegance, but not stiffness. You want to look like you could grace the cover of Vogue or run a board meeting with equal ease." The final result was breathtaking. Hailey looked like royalty, not the overdone, trying too hard kind, but the natural, born-to-it kind. Every detail worked in harmony to create an overall impression of success, confidence, and understated power. But the physical preparation was only part of the battle plan. Jennifer insisted on emotional and psychological preparation as well. "You need to be ready for anything," she warned during one of their strategy sessions. "They might ignore you completely. They might be coldly polite. They might try to provoke you. You need to know exactly how you're going to respond to every possible scenario." They role-played different interactions, with Jennifer playing various parts. Ricky, Natasha, Marilyn Brown, wedding guests who might recognize Hailey from the society pages or business magazines. They practiced responses to potential insults, awkward questions, and unexpected emotional triggers. "If Ricky tries to talk to you alone," Jennifer instructed, "you remain polite but distant. You congratulate him on his marriage and excuse yourself. No matter what he says, you don't engage in personal conversation. If Natasha approaches you," she continued, "you're gracious but cold. You thank her for the invitation and comment on how lovely everything looks. Then you move away. Do not let her bait you into anything resembling a real conversation. And if Marilyn Brown says anything to you at all," Jennifer's voice turned hard, "you remind yourself that she's a bitter old woman whose greatest achievement was destroying her son's first marriage. You pity her, you don't fear her." The psychological preparation also included daily affirmations and visualization exercises. Every morning, Hailey spent 10 minutes standing in front of her mirror, reminding herself of her accomplishments, her strength, her worth. "I am Hailey Long," she would say to her reflection. "I am a successful businesswoman. I am an excellent mother. I am a survivor who became a thriver. I am beautiful, confident, and complete. Nothing they say or do can diminish who I've become." Dr. Mitchell helped with additional emotional preparation during their sessions. "Remember," the therapist said, "this wedding is not about you, it's about them. Their choices, their relationship, their celebration. You are simply a guest who happens to have history with the groom. You're not there to prove anything or settle any scores. You're there to demonstrate to yourself that you've moved beyond their ability to hurt you. The week before the wedding, Hayley made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She decided to bring Marcus and Michael with her. Absolutely not, Jennifer said immediately. This is emotional warfare disguised as a social event. You cannot expose those children to whatever psychological games are being played here. But Hayley had thought this through carefully. They're going to find out their father got remarried, whether I tell them or not. Kids at school will talk, or they'll see something online, or Ricky will mention it during one of his visits. I'd rather they hear it from me, and I'd rather they see that I can handle it with dignity. She paused, her voice growing stronger. More importantly, I want them to witness that their mother is strong enough to face anything, not hiding from it, not running from it, but walking into it with her head held high. That's a lesson worth learning. The decision sparked heated debates with Jennifer, concerned conversations with Dr. Mitchell, and careful discussions with the boys themselves. Dad is getting married to Miss Natasha, Hayley explained to Marcus and Michael, using simple terms they could understand. They invited us to the wedding, and I think we should go. Will we have to live with them now? Michael asked, his 7-year-old mind trying to process the implications. No, sweetheart, Hayley assured him. Nothing about your life is going to change. You'll still live here with me and Maria. You'll still go to the same school and have the same friends. Dad getting married doesn't change anything about our family. Will Miss Natasha be our stepmom? Marcus asked with the analytical precision that reminded Hayley so much of herself. In a technical sense, yes, Hayley replied carefully. But that doesn't mean anything has to change about your relationship with her or with your dad. You'll still see him the same amount during your regular visits. The boys processed this information with the remarkable adaptability of children who had learned to roll with life's complexities. They had never had a traditional nuclear family, so the idea of their father marrying someone else wasn't as devastating as it might have been for other children. Will you be sad? Michael asked, his empathetic nature showing through. Maybe a little, Hayley admitted. Sometimes it's sad when chapters of our lives end completely. But I'll be okay because I have you two, and you're the best things that ever happened to me. Will you look really pretty? Marcus asked, making both Hayley and Jennifer laugh. I'm going to look amazing, Hayley promised. We all are. We're going to show everyone what a strong, beautiful family looks like. The decision to bring the boys required additional preparation. They needed appropriate formal wear, which led to a shopping expedition that resulted in 2 miniature suits that made them look like young gentlemen. They needed to understand wedding etiquette and behavior expectations. Most importantly, they needed to be emotionally prepared for a potentially difficult day. If anyone says anything that makes you uncomfortable, Hayley told them, you come find me immediately. If you want to leave at any time for any reason, you tell me and we'll go. This is about showing respect and handling difficult situations with class, but it's not about suffering through anything that makes you unhappy. The boys, who had inherited their mother's resilience and intelligence, seemed to understand the gravity of the situation without being overwhelmed by it. They were excited about the formal clothes, curious about seeing their father get married, and completely confident that their mother could handle whatever the day brought. 3 days before the wedding, Hayley received an unexpected phone call from Ricky himself. Hayley? His voice was hesitant, uncertain. I got a message that you RSVP'd yes to the wedding. I wanted to make sure that was intentional. It was intentional, Hayley replied, her voice calm and professional. Thank you for the invitation. You don't have to come, he said quickly. I mean, if it's going to be difficult for you, it won't be difficult for me, Hayley lied smoothly. I hope you and Natasha have a beautiful wedding and a happy marriage. There was a long pause. Are you bringing anyone? He asked finally. "I'm bringing Marcus and Michael," she said. "I thought they should be there for their father's wedding." Another pause, longer this time. That's good. I'm glad they'll be there." "Ricky," Haley said, "I want you to know that I harbor no ill will toward you or Natasha. What happened between us was a long time ago. I've moved on completely, and I hope you have too. It was another lie, but a necessary one. She did harbor ill will, how could she not? But she would never let him know that, would never give him the satisfaction of knowing he still had the power to hurt her. "Thank you," he said, and she could hear the relief in his voice. That means a lot." After the call ended, Haley sat in her office, looking out at the Chicago skyline she had conquered, thinking about the strange turns life could take. In 3 days, she would watch the man who had once promised to love her forever pledge his life to someone else. She would smile and be gracious while her heart dealt with whatever emotions the day brought, but she would survive it. More than survive it, she would triumph over it, because she was no longer the broken woman who had signed divorce papers 7 years ago. She was Haley Long, Phoenix, risen from ashes, mother of 2 incredible boys, builder of empires, survivor of betrayals, and she was ready to show the world exactly who she had become. The war was coming, and Haley Long was prepared to win it simply by being magnificently, unshakably herself. Chapter 9. The Wedding Day Confrontation. The Palmer House Hilton had been transformed into a fairy tale wedding venue, with cascades of white roses, golden lighting, and elegance that whispered of unlimited budgets. Haley arrived with Marcus and Michael at precisely 4:15 p.m., 15 minutes after the ceremony's scheduled start, late enough to make an entrance without disrupting the proceedings. The 3 of them emerged from their hired black car, and the effect was immediate and electric. Haley looked like absolute royalty. In her emerald green silk dress, her hair styled to perfection, her makeup flawless. The boys flanked her in their perfectly tailored suits, resembling young princes accompanying their queen mother. Every eye that witnessed their approach turned and stared. Whispers rippled through the wedding guests gathered in the hotel's elegant lobby. Haley felt the attention, the shock, the curiosity, but maintained her serene composure with her head held high. "Remember," she whispered to her sons as they walked toward the ceremony space, "we're here to show respect and handle ourselves with class. Whatever happens, we stay together, and we stay strong." "You look like a princess, Mom," Michael whispered. Aback, his 7-year-old eyes wide with admiration. "You look like a queen," Marcus corrected with his usual precision. The ceremony was already in progress when they slipped into the back of the room. Haley chose seats in the last row where they could observe without drawing attention, where they could leave quickly if necessary. From their vantage point, she could see everything: the elegant decorations, the perfectly dressed wedding party, the backs of hundreds of guests. And at the altar, she could see Ricky in his black tuxedo, standing next to Natasha in what had to be a designer wedding gown that cost more than most people's cars. For a moment, just a moment, Haley felt a stab of pure pain, not because she still loved Ricky, but because of the sheer injustice of it all. Here he was, celebrating his new beginning with the woman who had helped destroy his first marriage, surrounded by people who knew nothing about the lies and manipulation that had brought them to this moment. But the pain passed quickly, replaced by something much stronger: pity. Pity for a man so weak that he had allowed others to poison his mind against his wife. Pity for a woman so consumed with jealousy that she had destroyed her best friend to get what she wanted. The ceremony was traditional and elegant, with all the pomp that money could buy. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, when Ricky kissed his new bride while the crowd erupted in applause, Haley felt nothing but detached observation. She clapped politely along with everyone else, her face wearing a pleasant expression that revealed nothing. "Is that really Dad?" Marcus whispered, studying the man at the altar with curious eyes. "Yes, baby," Haley whispered back. "That's your father." "He looks different," Michael observed with the brutal honesty of childhood. He did look different, older, softer somehow, diminished. The confident, passionate man Haley had married was gone, replaced by someone who seemed smaller, less vital. As the newlyweds recessed down the aisle, Haley got her first clear look at Natasha as a bride. Her former best friend was undeniably beautiful in her wedding finery, but there was something desperate in her smile, something too bright about her happiness. She looked like a woman who had finally gotten what she wanted, but wasn't entirely. Sure, it was worth what she had paid for it. Their eyes met for just a moment as Natasha passed their row. The bride's smile faltered when she saw Haley sitting there like an elegant spectre from the past, beautiful and composed and completely unbroken. The cocktail hour was held in the hotel's opulent ballroom. Haley moved through the crowd with practiced grace, making polite conversation with strangers who recognized her from business magazines or society pages. "Haley Long!" exclaimed Patricia Winters, a prominent Chicago socialite. "What a surprise to see you here. You look absolutely stunning." "Thank you, Patricia," Haley replied smoothly. "It's a beautiful wedding. And these must be your sons," Patricia continued, smiling down at Marcus and Michael. "They're so handsome. They have their father's eyes." The boys performed perfectly, shaking hands and making polite conversation with the ease of children raised. To handle adult social situations, Haley felt a surge of pride at their poise and confidence. Similar interactions played out throughout the cocktail hour. People approached Haley with curiosity and fascination. The story of her presence at her ex-husband's wedding to her former best friend was too delicious for Chicago's social scene to ignore. "She's magnificent," she heard someone whisper as she passed. "I can't believe she actually came, and she looks absolutely incredible. Look at her children, they're beautiful and so well-behaved." "Ricky Murray is an idiot," a third voice added bluntly. "How do you leave a woman like that?" The whispers followed her everywhere, but Haley pretended not to hear them. She was focused on her performance, maintaining the perfect balance of dignity and detachment. The reception dinner was held in the grand ballroom, with round tables dressed in white linens and gold accents. Haley and the boys were seated near the back, close enough to observe, far enough to avoid intimate interaction with the wedding party. The meal was elegant and perfectly executed, the atmosphere festive and celebratory. But Haley could feel tension building as the evening progressed. She noticed Marilyn Brown across the room, resplendent in navy blue, accepting congratulations. She noticed how Marilyn's eyes kept drifting to Haley's table, how her smile would tighten whenever she looked in their direction. She noticed Natasha growing more animated as the champagne flowed, her laughter becoming louder, her gestures more dramatic, and she noticed Ricky becoming quieter, more subdued. He looked like a man going through the motions rather than living his dream. The speeches began during dessert. Natasha's father gave a traditional toast. Ricky's best man delivered a humorous speech about friendship and love. But it was Marilyn Brown's speech as mother of the groom that changed the entire energy of the room. Marilyn rose from her seat at the head table, microphone in hand, wearing the smile of a woman who believed she had finally won a long war. She thanked the guests, praised the bride's beauty, and spoke about her son's happiness with maternal pride. But then her eyes found Haley across the room, and her speech took a darker turn. "I'm so grateful," Marilyn said, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom, "to see my son finally married to a woman who truly loves him, a woman who puts his happiness before her own ambition, a woman who understands what real commitment means." The words were carefully chosen, each one a deliberate insult aimed directly at Haley. Around the room, guests began to shift uncomfortably. Sensing the undercurrent of cruelty, Marcus looked up at his mother with confusion. "Mum, why is she talking about you like that?" "She's not talking about me, baby," Haley whispered back, though they both knew she was lying. "Some people think marriage is about taking," Marilyn continued, her voice growing stronger. "About what you can get from your partner, what they can do for your career, your status. But real love is about giving, about sacrifice, about putting your family first, always. I'm so proud of my son for having the courage to recognize when something isn't working, for having the strength to walk away from a toxic situation and find real happiness." Haley knew she had to leave. The insults were becoming too pointed, too vicious. But as they began to rise, Marilyn's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Of course, we should acknowledge that my son's first wife is here tonight," she announced with false graciousness. "How generous of her to come and celebrate his happiness with someone so much better suited to him." The ballroom fell into complete silence. Every head turned to look at Haley, who stood frozen, her children pressed close against her sides. That was when Natasha Williams-Murray made her fatal mistake. The new bride rose from her seat, champagne glass in hand, her face flushed. "With alcohol and triumph, I'd like to add something," Natasha announced. "I want to thank Haley for coming tonight. It takes real class to attend your ex-husband's wedding to your former best friend." The words hung in the air like poison. The cruelty was so blatant that guests actually gasped audibly. But Haley Long had survived worse than this. She straightened to her full height, her hand still protectively on her son's shoulders, and looked directly at Natasha with calm, steady eyes. "Thank you for the invitation," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "It's a beautiful wedding. I hope you both get exactly what you deserve." The words were polite on the surface, but everyone understood the deeper meaning. Haley turned to leave, her sons flanking her like young princes, her head held high with dignity. But Marilyn Brown was not finished with her revenge. As Haley walked toward the exit, Marilyn intercepted her path, moving with swift purpose. "How dare you?" Marilyn hissed, her voice low but carrying in the silent ballroom. "How dare you come here and try to ruin my son's wedding day?" Haley stopped and looked at the older woman with calm eyes. "I came because I was invited. I've done nothing but show respect and courtesy all evening. Your very presence here is an insult," Marilyn spat back. "You destroyed my son's happiness once. I won't let you do it again." "Mrs. Brown," Haley said quietly, aware that every person in the room was watching, "I think you should step aside and let me leave with my children." But Marilyn Brown had spent 7 years nurturing her hatred, 7 years feeding on resentment, 7 years planning her ultimate revenge. The sight of Haley standing there, beautiful, successful, unbroken, triggered something primitive and uncontrollable. All her careful planning crumbled in the face of pure, irrational rage. "You think you're so much better than everyone else," Marilyn continued, her voice rising dangerously. "You think you can just waltz in here with your designer dress and your perfect children and make everyone remember what a victim you are. Well, you're not a victim. You're a manipulator, a destroyer of families." And that was when 7 years of rage finally exploded, right there in front of the crowd, cameras and flashing lights. Marilyn Brown drew back her hand and slapped Haley Long across the face with every ounce of strength and venom she possessed. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. The crowd gasped. Silence fell. Her sons stepped forward instantly, furious and protective, ready to defend their mother, but Haley held her ground. No tears, no screaming, no dramatic reaction, just silence and power. She touched her reddened cheek with her fingertips, looked at Marilyn Brown with something that might have been pity, and then spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the room. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for showing everyone exactly who you really are." And then she turned to her sons, placed a gentle hand on each of their shoulders, and walked out of that ballroom with more dignity than anyone in that room had ever seen. Behind her, the silence gradually gave way to shocked whispers, horrified gasps, and the unmistakable sound of a celebration dying a sudden, ugly death, because in that moment, Marilyn Brown hadn't destroyed Haley Long. She had revealed herself as the monster she had always been, and Haley Long had proven once, and for all, that she was unbreakable. Chapter 10, The Crown of Victory. The aftermath of Marilyn Brown's public assault spread through Chicago's social circles like wildfire, but not in the way she had intended. By the time Haley and her sons reached their car outside the Palmer House Hilton, cell phone videos of the incident were already spreading across social media. The image of an elegant woman being slapped by a vindictive older woman while two young boys watched in horror sparked immediate outrage. But Haley remained unaware of the digital storm. She focused entirely on her sons, who sat in stunned silence as their car pulled away from the hotel. "Mom," Marcus said finally, his 7-year-old voice trembling. "Why did that lady hit you?" Haley reached over and took both boys' hands, her cheek still stinging, but her heart steady and strong. "Sometimes people do terrible things when they're full of hate and pain. Mrs. Brown is a very unhappy woman who has spent years blaming others for her own problems." "But you didn't do anything wrong," Michael protested, his young face flushed with indignation. "You're right, baby. And that's exactly why I didn't hit her back or yell. When someone shows you who they really are, the best thing you can do is let everyone see the difference between you and them." Marcus, with his analytical mind, was processing the evening with remarkable maturity. "Everyone saw that she was mean and you were kind. Everyone saw that she lost control and you stayed strong," Michael added, admiration shining in his eyes. "That's right," Haley confirmed. "Sometimes the greatest victory is simply being yourself when others are being their worst selves." Back at the Palmer House Hilton, the wedding reception was disintegrating into chaos. The moment Haley left, guests erupted into shocked conversation. The elegant celebration Natasha had planned for months was overshadowed by the ugly display of cruelty they had witnessed. "Did that really just happen?" Patricia Winters whispered to her husband. "Did Marilyn Brown actually assault Haley Long in front of 200 people?" Around the room, similar conversations unfolded. Guests who had come to celebrate a wedding were instead discussing public cruelty. Many were already posting about it, expressing outrage at what they had witnessed. At the head table, Ricky sat in stunned silence, his face pale with shock and something that looked remarkably like regret. For the first time in 7 years, the fog of manipulation began to clear. He had watched his mother attack an innocent woman, the mother of his children, while his sons stood helplessly by. He had seen Haley's grace under attack, her dignity in the face of cruelty, and he realized with crushing clarity what he had lost. "Ricky," Natasha hissed, grabbing his arm, "say something. People are staring." But Ricky couldn't speak. The woman he had once promised to love and protect had just been publicly humiliated while he sat silent. Within hours, the story had been picked up by local Chicago news stations. By morning, it was circulating on social media with hashtags like "A Dignity Under Fire." The contrast between Haley's grace and Marilyn's viciousness was so stark that public opinion was overwhelmingly supportive of Haley. The Chicago Tribune ran a story titled "Grace Under Pressure at Local Wedding." Local business networks began discussing the incident, recognizing character under pressure, a quality valued in professional circles. Within days, 3 major companies reached out to Phoenix Strategies, What happened at that wedding showed us exactly who Haley Long is, explained Rebecca Chen, VP of Marketing for a Fortune 500 technology company. That's the kind of person we want representing our brand. But Haley was most moved by her community's response. Letters of support arrived daily. Parents at her son's school approached her with admiration. "You showed my daughter what real strength looks like," one mother said. "Thank you for demonstrating that dignity is always more powerful than cruelty." The legal ramifications were swift. The assault, captured on video and witnessed by hundreds, resulted in criminal charges against Marilyn Brown. More significantly, it triggered a custody review for Marcus and Michael. The court is very concerned about the toxic environment our children may be exposed to, explained Haley's attorney. "We're requesting supervised visitation and that Marilyn Brown be prohibited from contact with the children." Ricky, facing the possibility of losing access to his sons entirely, requested a private meeting with Haley. They met at a quiet cafe downtown. Ricky looked older than his 38 years, worn down by guilt and realization of how thoroughly he had been manipulated. "I don't know how to apologize for what my mother did," he began, his voice heavy with shame. "There's no excuse. It was wrong and I should have stopped her." "You should have stopped her 7 years ago," Haley replied quietly, "when she was destroying our marriage, when she convinced you to abandon your pregnant wife." Ricky flinched. "I can see now how she manipulated me, how she twisted everything, how she made me doubt you when I should have trusted you. And Natasha?" Gradually I realized her role, little things that didn't add up, but I didn't want to see it because that would mean I'd destroyed our marriage for nothing. Haley felt a moment of pity for the broken man before her. "What do you want from me, Ricky?" "I want to be a real father to Marcus and Michael. I want to protect them from my mother's toxicity. And Natasha, I don't know if our marriage can survive this. How do you trust someone who spent years lying to you?" They negotiated new arrangements prioritizing the boys' well-being. Ricky would see them regularly, but only in environments where Marilyn was not present. "They're incredible kids," Ricky said as their meeting concluded. "You've done an amazing job raising them." "I had to," Haley replied. "They deserved the best I could give them." As spring turned to summer, the incident's effects continued rippling through everyone's lives. Marilyn Brown, facing criminal charges and social ostracism, became a pariah. The woman once respected as a community pillar was now known as the bitter mother-in-law who had assaulted her son's ex-wife at a wedding. Natasha's marriage to Ricky lasted 18 months. When Ricky finally understood the full extent of his wife's deception and her role in destroying his first marriage, he filed for divorce. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. He was experiencing the doubt and suspicion he had once inflicted on Haley. But for Haley, the incident had become a strange gift. The public validation had brought opportunities she never could have imagined. More importantly, it provided final closure on a chapter that had haunted her for years. Standing in her office one evening in late summer, watching the sun set over the city she had conquered, Haley reflected on her journey. The naive young woman who had believed love would overcome any obstacle was truly gone. In her place stood a warrior tested by fire and emerged stronger, wiser, and more beautiful than ever. Her sons were thriving, growing into young men who understood integrity, kindness, and strength. Her business flourished, built on hard work, innovation, and authentic relationships. Her life overflowed with purpose, meaning, and genuine happiness. Most importantly, she had learned she didn't need anyone's approval to know her worth. The crown of victory she wore wasn't given by external forces. She had forged it herself through years of perseverance, growth, and refusing to let others' cruelty diminish her spirit. Marcus and Michael burst into her office, fresh from school, full of stories and boundless energy. "Mom," Michael called out, "can we get pizza for dinner? Marcus thinks we should have healthy food, but I think we should celebrate." Celebrate what? Haley asked, pulling both boys into a hug. Celebrate being us, Marcus said simply. Celebrate being the best family ever. Haley smiled, feeling the truth of those words settle into her heart like a blessing. They were the best family ever, not because they were perfect, but because they had been built with love, truth, and unshakable loyalty to each other. She had survived the worst betrayal imaginable and transformed it into fuel for an extraordinary life. She had raised sons who were kind, strong, and confident. She had built a business that made a difference. She had surrounded herself with people who valued her for who she truly was. As they walked home together through the Chicago streets she had conquered, Haley Long knew with absolute certainty that she had won every battle that mattered. The woman who rose from the ashes was not the same person who had been broken 7 years ago. She was something far more powerful, someone who understood that true victory came not from revenge, but from the simple, magnificent act of living well. She was crowned not by others, but by her own unbreakable spirit, and she was, finally and completely, free.